Well, are you ready for some unindoctrination? I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, live from the heartland of America. Welcome to the Christian Whistleblower channel. We're here to help you unindoctrinate yourself. And the biggest statement of unindoctrination that we can ever help you with is to let you know that you're divine, you're sovereign, you're free. You don't have to go on bended knee to anybody's savior because you don't need salvation. We're shining light into the dark corners of orthodoxy. Hello, Peter Cast from the People's Republic of China, or excuse me, People's Republic of California, same thing. Los Angeles Gulag. Good luck out there, Peter. You got Nancy Pelosi's crazy nephew. And man, you hate to say it, but if he tripped and fell down the stairs, I don't know if there'd be anybody show up at his funeral. That's terrible to say, but that's kind of the places that we are in. Butte, Montana, checking in. It's not Montana, it's Butte. Come on, people. So we have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about UFOs, aliens, and the fairy kingdom, and also how that relates to child abduction and child eating. It's going to be amazing. Israel is China now too. I don't know. I see where you're going with that, Mike. But we got a great show for you. And I also wanted to remind you that on Saturday, this is something that you don't get a lot of opportunity. In fact, you get no opportunity to take advantage of this type of information. On Saturday, high noon Central Time, on Saturday, Mike King, the celebrated Mike King, who's a great author, he'll be joining us, and we'll have a 3-hour seminar, not like a 3-hour tour of Gilligan, but a 3-hour seminar on this subject right here. I don't really like the picture on the website where you purchase your tickets, but we'll deal with it. Hidden Secrets of World War II and the Inner Earth. His books have been banned by Amazon. Thought Crime Scene. And then I'll be coming up after Mike gives his hour-and-a-half dissertation on the Bad War, the Hidden Secrets of World War II. And he'll take an extensive question and answer period. And then I'll come on and talk about the secrets of the Inner Earth. And believe it or not, it ties in very interestingly with the secrets of World War II. So Mike King of Real History takes you beyond the sanitized version of world history we have today, revealing the truth of World War II and how it still impacts our life today. And then Jeffrey Daugherty will pick up Mike's trail and take us inside the amazing secrets of the Inner Earth and shows you how it is connected to the last World War. I'm looking forward to that on this Saturday, high noon Central Time. We hope that you'll go there, get your ticket. It's only $10 and be represented at that great first time of webcast excellence. And we're going to do more and more of those. But listen, young Pharaoh family in the house, Uncle Quester. Uncle, I got something coming up today for the Cousins Club. I think Pharaoh might be a little bit upset with me about, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, let's talk about this. Let's tackle this because this is really important stuff. And folks, the Mistec is back. Just go to my website, click on the M logo. It looks just like that. Get your bracelets, get your jewelry, keep yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually optimized. You get a full 20% off. They're a part of my life. There's a reason for it. And our first Pharaoh was on the edge of wonder yesterday. Great. Our first segment's brought to you by them. So here we go. Let's get into this. This is good stuff, and I don't want to keep hemming and hawing. So here we go, folks. UFOs, aliens, and the fairy kingdom, the truth that no one wants to face. Let's take a look at it right now. And it all started, thank you, Spadette. It started in 1881, believe it or not. Because in 1881, a guy named Edwin Sidney Hartland published something called The Science of Fairy Tales. It was an exhaustive study of fairies, elves, pixies, all of the beings that Mr. Hartland believed occupy this place called Fairy World. And the importance of this book is that it began to introduce, as well as give the data points for modern scholars who have taken to this study and have begun to realize that there's many distinct and fascinating similarities and connections between what we used to call fairies, elves, gnomes, and what we have today as reports of alleged UFO alien entities. So all of these things about fairies, all of these things about UFOs, ETs, lining up in a very, very eerie and interesting fashion. Glowing flying objects, strange small creatures, missing time. Believe it or not only are those things all part of the modern UFO era, but those things, those experiences were also reported centuries ago and were attributed to creatures that share the earth with us. Delaney says she's got fairies in her house. Doesn't surprise me a bit. Doesn't surprise me a bit. Nice to see you, Delaney. Tracy Dyer says, is it the modernizing of an old myth? Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that because it's very, very interesting and it has really wide-ranging implications. And when one takes the information contained in this presentation that we're going to give you here today, and when you consider that presentation, Sonny Miller, very smart man, says he supports the fairy community. Very, very smart. Steady Eddie, nice to see you, brother. I don't think of you every day now because it's warm. But if you take this information under consideration, you may find yourself very, very slow to be quick to go ahead and say that exclusively all alien spacecraft, all alien intervention, all alien interaction is from some far-off planet. And when you catch people saying that, you're going to realize that it's really a basic lack of understanding of how people look at strange encounters in a time where there was simply no other concept of space and distant galaxies. Oh, Lisa Gallant, this is really good. Elves and L. Ooh, love the great comments. Keep them coming. We appreciate you very, very much. So let's get into this. Fair, white, Snow White. Interesting. Tooth Fairy. I like it. Last night I only took the one. I'm coming back tomorrow night for the rest of them. MUFON president arrested on pedo charges. Am I a bad guy if I say that doesn't surprise me? Am I a bad guy if I say that doesn't surprise me? Because MUFON is very, 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 very heavily infiltrated by, I've created a new term, Goyanity. Think about that. MUFON is very heavily infiltrated by Goyanity. And Goyanity is known for blood sacrifice and pedophilia and worse. Sonny says, MUFON is very hands-on. Very, very well played. Too soon? No, I don't think so. So anyway, let's look at this. Beings from flying saucers are much more probably creatures that share this earth with us, regarding whom science has not a single word to say, but about whom our own written and oral traditions in all of our civilizations speak volumes. That's Gordon Creighton from the Flying Saucer Review. Green Greg says, nice to see you, Green Greg. No evidence of off-planet origins. He's right. Same phenomenon goes for succubus, incubus, goes back thousands of years. Again, nice to see you, Green Greg. Also Galactic Greg. Very, very nice to see you. Lisa Gallant, a very, very civic-minded individual. She has volunteered to donate a box of bullets to help cure pedophilia. I agree with you 100%. Creatures that share this earth with us. Do you know that according to folklore, the world over, we've been sharing this earth with other beings since time immemorial? What if the truth isn't out there? What if the truth is right here amongst us right here with us as the lovely Cynthia checks in, driving home from the big city, the mask-wearing craziness. Okay, think about this, folks. I'm a little giddy today, man. I just finished a Cousins Club presentation, getting ready for it, from a book written by Henry Ford called The International LEM. That's not really the name, but look in the box below. Wow. That's all I can say right now is wow. Many UFOs are spotted coming from inside mountains. Yes. That might figure into the presentation on the Inner Earth on Saturday. It's possible. Hello, Troy. So up until the pre-industrial revolution, we usually referred to these beings, these supernatural beings, these orbs, these things coming out of the sky, these different type of beings. They were referred to collectively as the fairy folk, not the fairly folk, but the fairy folk. They don't particularly like that name. I prefer to call them the gentry, but at any rate, they have been collectively referred to as, nice to see you, Joseph H. They have been referred to as the fairy folk. And think about it. We used to live very close to nature, like Green Greg does now, like Cynthia and I try to. We used to be very close to nature. We'd walk in nature. We'd live in nature. We'd work nature. We made our living from the nature. There was a very, very tight connection between people and nature. So when we grasped unusual things, when we saw unusual things, when we glimpsed them, we normally were thinking that it would be a part of nature because that's all we knew. It's actually our nature, pardon the pun, to seek and explain and rationalize what we see as the supernatural. And then comes the Industrial Revolution, the age of the machine, and the great majority of humanity that had been, until then, agrarian, rural, growing worms, keeping bees. We're keeping bees. Man, I got to tell you about these bees real quick. Just a slight bee story, and then we'll be right back to our subject matter. But Cynthia and I have been keeping bees for like 3 months. May, June, July, we've been keeping our bees. And we didn't expect to get any honey the first year. We've been in the beehive, 4 or 5 times maybe. We do the bee stuff. And dude and dudettes, we went out there a couple days ago. It was time to check for honey. Psh, 5 gallons of honey. What? And that was still leaving the bees a bunch of honey. So Greg also does bees. We got 5 gallons, baby. Big old 5-gallon, boom, full of the sweetest honey, the nicest honey. It's not totally sweet. It's nice clover honey. Very light colored. But, dude, we got 5 gallons of honey. All right, a little less than 5, but between 4 and 5. I like to round up. I'm an optimist. And we'll probably leave the rest of it in the hive for the year. Let those bees winter over it. And then next year we'll be ready to get even more honey. But it's so fantastic. I recommend beekeeping. You might want to try it out. It's a very, very excellent type of a hobby. So the Industrial Revolution comes. Oh, Greg hosts a beekeeper. Greg is not a beekeeper, but he's still a bee lover. And the great majority of humanity goes to working in the cities, not in the fields anymore, just in the factories. And of course, there's a change. The perceptive filter of that perceived as supernatural slowly but surely morphs from the things of nature to the things that are mechanical. And the switch also creates unease, imbalance, fear. And as always, in times of fear, men begin to look to the heavens, and now instead of seeing the gentry, instead of seeing the fae, they see things of a far different nature. And the question becomes, is it just a matter of perception? I think it is. I echo what Greg says. Not one bit of proof of anything being from off-world. Not a shred of evidence of anything being from off-world. So I take Occam's razor to it. That's not something you shave your face with. That's something that you guide your thinking with. The thing that requires the least amount of variables, basically the thing that requires you to make up the least amount of shit, is probably the right one. And if they're just from here, boom, they're just from here. And Barry has it right. He says, good work, Cynthia, because it probably is mainly Cynthia's work. So, all right. Fairies and little green men. In yesteryear, folks, the little people had a firm grip on the imaginations of both peasant and poet alike. Now in the 21st century, thank you, Christina. I like how Christina did a little subtle spamming and advertising, but then gave a great compliment. Well done. Ooh, Greg, I love this. Greg, how could I not have thought of this? Greg says that he manscapes with Occam's razor. That is beautiful. I'm going to steal that, Greg. I'll just let you know straight up front. Is it really stealing if you tell somebody you're going to take it? But anyway. So used to be the fairies that we thought about. 21st century, now same little beings, but now instead of being from right here, now they're from galaxies away and they're coming here in UFOs. But could the two phenomenon, the fairies and the aliens, somehow be related? What if they were even identical? And some of the most respected names in modern UFO era answer with an emphatic yes. Did fairies probe people? Sonny, I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked, because we're going to get into that probing part. And the answer is no, but we're going to get into that probing part. All right. So growing evidence is beginning to suggest that there's no difference between the fairies and the aliens, and the intrinsic nature of the entities described in the accounts is really one and the same. And by removing the time-based cultural and social factors, we can see them for what they are. Forget about the old fairy stories. Forget about the new ET stories. Just look at the beings. And this author suggests that you classify them as non-human entities. And then the question remains, where do they come from? Well, one man's gray might be another lady's goblin. One thing's becoming more and more obvious. Non-human entities do not originate in a galaxy far, far away. I wonder if this might tie into the Saturday discussion of the inner Earth. I'm not sure. If you know anything about UFOs, if you know anything about ufology, you're probably familiar with the names John Keel and Jacques Vallée, or Vallée. I think it's Vallée. So do you think the orbs that are seen flying around is the fabled fairy? Yeah, I do, Barry. But John Keel and Jacques Vallée were among the first to see a clear connection between 20th century aliens and the ancient fairy myths. Keel was the author of the Mothman prophecies. You remember that? He also wrote for the Lost in Space TV show, the original one, Danger, Will Robinson. And he also popularized the term Men in Black. So the guy knew a lot about what he was talking about in regards to ufology. In Vallée, he put forth first the idea of this relationship in a book he wrote in 1969 that was called Passport to Magonia. And he argued that UFOs were just another guise or another form of the same order of beings that had always been present. He didn't think they were from a galaxy far, far away. Now, Jerome Clark wrote a book called the UFO Book, and he quotes Vallée as calling this order Magonia. That's Latin for magic land, and it was an old French word that means from whence ships in the clouds come. So French peasants, way back in the medieval times, were seeing ships coming from the clouds. And Vallée did a very scholarly job. He surveyed religious traditions. He surveyed folk beliefs. He surveyed occult texts, newspapers, looked for evidence of pre-UFO manifestations of Magonia. And he found it in these Marian apparitions. Well, what's a Marian apparition? Does that mean Martian? He forgot the T. No, we're talking about the so-called Virgin Mary appearing. Virgin of Guadalupe, Lourdes. That's a non-human entity appearing in the sky, talking, doing all kinds of that stuff. It is, according to Vallée, a non-human entity manifestation. He also looked at fairy lore. That's what we're talking about here today. He looked at elementals, another little wrinkle on what we're talking about here today. And then in and Tracy hits it right as we're getting to it, elementals. In 1896 and 1897, there were these crazy sightings of these great big airships. And there weren't any airships then. There were not any airships then. Or were there? I did a video called 19th century mystery airships. It's on this channel. And I did identify what those ships were, but this was part of Vallee's work. Interdimensionals, Tracy says, yes, that's another part of it. And in another book called Destination Earth, there's so much study that goes into this, you guys, so much study. Alan Baker gives Vallee's work additional attention. He says Vallee has probably done more than any other ufologist to promote the idea that there are profound connections between modern UFOs and their occupants, and reports from previous centuries regarding entities called fairies. Folks, this is nothing new. This has a lot to do with you as well. And then there was this guy, really interesting guy called Reverend Robert Kirk. And of course, if you're talking about extraterrestrials, if you're talking about ETs, there's got to be a guy named Kirk involved. Joe Montoya lives in a town whose name translates to portals. That's interesting. I'd be out looking around if it were you, especially at the beginning of the quarters of the year, on the solstices. But anyway, Kirk was a 17th century Scottish cleric. That means he was a minister. And he wrote back in the 17th century, that's 1801 and on to 1899, he said that fairies can appear and vanish at will. He said fairies have the power to carry away things and people. He said that you often encounter fairies on the highway. He interestingly also said that fairies have no religion, no devotion to a god, that they live inside the earth, and that there's lost time in fairy scenarios. Doesn't that sound kind of similar to what you hear about aliens? Because there's an exact parallel between aliens and fairies. There's a striking similarity in physical description. Gray's appearance, the appearance of a gray, is much like the appearance of some of the scarier little people. Grays can carry away things and people. The interior of the earth is more and more being looked at as a possible source of at least some aliens. And how many UFO encounters occur on highways? Tons of them. They've long been seen as places of transition. Highways have. A transition of both space and time, crossroads, highways, bridges. You've watched Supernatural. Very, very interesting, these correlations. And the aliens of modern reports even move like the fairies were said to have moved. Their strange means of locomotion echoes that described by Reverend Kirk, the way that aliens kind of like float, or they take those little choppy steps. Same thing in fairies, man. Aliens are said to exist in tribes. If you are into this alien thing, they got books or websites out there that'll show you there's 47 different types of aliens, and boom, 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 here they are. There's different sites, different classes of grays, and bomb, 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 yada, yada, yada. But the fairies also exist and being broken down in segments and strata like that as well. Fairy houses, you read the descriptions of the old fairy houses, a lot of them sound exactly like the descriptions of modern UFO craft. And like the fairies, the aliens don't talk very much. And when they do, most of it's telepathic. But when they do speak, they always know the local language, both the fairies and the aliens. A lot of similarities between these fairies and in these aliens. Now, Bullard, he wrote the modern standard of judging abductions. So if you're a MUFON person, you know all about Bullard and Nyland's standard abduction scenario. And he placed the modern accounts side by side with reports of visits from fairies. A lot of times the visits of UFOs are at night in remote areas. A lot of visitations of fairies are at night in the remote areas near a fairy mound. A person that's abducted will enter a zone of strangeness and machines will malfunction. A person that has a fairy experience will find himself in unfamiliar surroundings, or he'll suddenly be lost right in his own front yard. If you're in a UFO abduction, you might get carried away into a UFO. Well, If you're in a fairy scenario, you might be distracted or carried away or lured away by enchanting music or enticing beings. If you're in a UFO scenario, you might wind up in a uniformly lit operating room. If you are in a fairy scenario, you might wind up inside a dimly lit fairy mound. And guess what? Both the aliens and the fairies are known to be prodders. Well, Jeff, I thought you said that the fairies don't prod. Well, I don't think they do. Stay tuned. And all of this begs the question that author Keith Thompson in his book, Angels and Aliens, quite sensibly asks. Is this essentially the same experience, viewed through different cultural filters? I say yes. The common thread linking the two phenomenon are readily apparent. Many UFO researchers have drawn this same discussion, the same conclusion. And all the British and Scandinavian lore, the fairies live beneath the surface of the earth. And interestingly enough, the fairies have never been popularly conceived of as spirits, like dead or departed spirits. Not until the influence of biblical times. So, well, Jeff, I believe only in aliens. Well, you do have about 60 years where UFO researchers and eyewitnesses to alleged alien activity have been convinced that they have conclusive proof that ET beings truly exist. I know that you're sure after 60 years of research. Well, you might want to consider that for the past 4,000 years, scholars and eyewitnesses have been convinced that they have conclusive proof that the little people exist. Tracy Dyer, interesting statement that the stereotypical UFO shape is like a mushroom cap. The data points have not changed, only the conclusions. We can't continue to ignore the cultural aspects of these facts and call ourselves objective researchers, in my humble opinion. Now, let's get to the dark side here for a minute. And before we do that, let me encourage you to take a look at my good friends, Focused Life Force Energy. You can go on my website at jeffreydaugherty.com, click on their logo. It's kind of like a whoosh, and it's high consciousness on demand. It will literally send a high consciousness, high tone scale environment to your location and help you as you're trying to raise your personal vibration. You get 30 days free, or you get a great offer just to go ahead and sign up with it. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on that fluffy logo. It helps you, it helps your plants, it helps your pets. And we've never had a report of anyone ever being abducted by alien or fairy out of a fluffy environment. So take that for what you will. So let's talk about the dark side. Let's talk about child abduction cover lore. And this is not from any book. This is kind of me piecing things together. Because as I was doing this study, I realized that the church, Roman Catholic, Roman Protestant, has always leveraged both the fairy and the UFO child abduction lore. The church has always been talking about fairies, or hasn't stamped it out. Let's put it that way. The church doesn't stamp out the UFO child abduction lore. What if they're using UFO child abduction lore, fairy child abduction lore, as a cover for their own child abduction and abuse activity? As I do the study, having done this for 40 years, having been a minister for 20 years, having over 100,000 hours of study within the biblical text, the facts strongly suggest that the church is at least partially responsible for creating the fairy abduction lore back in the day, as well as creating and maintaining the UFO alien abduction lore of today. The real question in my mind is not have they leveraged it, but how much of the whole idea of child abduction by supernatural entities has been created by the church as cover of their own nefarious child stealing, child abusing, child drinking, child eating proclivities. Lisa says, wow. And I'm convinced of this, Lisa, that when the whole truth is known, we will discover that the church has always controlled the media and the information delivery systems. We will discover that the church has always abducted, always raped, always tortured, and always killed children. And they're looking to blame other people for it and to use other people and other entities as cover. I've had, and Cynthia's going to probably wreck, honey, keep it between the lines. Tracy agrees it's a cover story. I've had contact from the gentry, what you would call fairies. And the gentry have assured me that fairies, the gentry, Disney's full of fairies. Thank you for saying that, Jama. See, I can't think of everything. That's why I need you folks. I've had contact from the gentry, and they have assured me that no class of fairy, no gentry have ever been involved in child abduction. Never. It's been created by the church and blamed on them to cover the church's own activities. Supposed ET abduction and probing lore is clandestine, I misspelled it wrong, church cabal sex adrenochrome operation. Let's face it, folks, the gentry have never been about your ass, and aliens, if they exist, don't care about your ass. They really don't. Aliens do not care about your ass. But most people are very, very frightened about the idea of anal rape, except for you freaks. And that's okay with your bad self. Have fun. Be safe. Make sure it is, what's that word when both people want it? Consensual. But most people are really, really scared about having their butt raped. Uncle Quester. I'm still trying not to think gay dude when I hear fairy. It's a reason, Uncle Quester, that they're called fairies, anal, butt probe, gay guys. It's the same. You're on it, Uncle. Most people very, very afraid about getting their butt raped. They are, for good reason. Again, unless you... Anyway. And fear makes good adrenochrome. Kids are taught to believe in Jesus. And they're especially tasty when they realize that the Jesus that they've been believing in is an alien, and now he's got them. Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red, yellow, black, white. They're all very, very tasty in his sight. Jesus is a fairy. Jesus is an alien. Why do you think Jesus looks so feminine, Uncle Quester? He's supposed to look fairy-ish. He's supposed to look alien-ish because he's into butt probing. The gentry don't probe butts. And the aliens don't exist. But the cabal probes butts, the church probes butts, the Illuminati probes butts, the B-BLE probes butts, the Jesuits probe butts, the LEMS probe butts, and they're all pretending to be these things and blaming it on these things. Thomas Bullard also took note of this similarity. Fairies practice abduction of humans, especially women and children. I've been assured by the gentry they don't. So who would have a vested interest to make us think that fairies practice abduction of humans, women, and children? Like Tracy Dyer says, don't look here, look there. We are surrounded by butt probers. Children stealing ogres. There you go again, Barry. And they have this lore going about the fairies, this lore going about the aliens, that these aliens, these fairies, which are really the same thing, they have got to steal our women, they've got to steal our children because they can't reproduce anymore, and the perpetuation of their fairy race, the perpetuation of their ET races has been lost. Their ability to reproduce themselves has been lost. And Bullard nails it without knowing it. The church has created and fostered this lore to cover its own child/woman abduction/torture operations, because they say, oh, the fairies can't exist without drinking babies. Well, the fact of the matter is the church can't exist without drinking babies. The cabal can't exist without drinking babies. The Illuminati, the Jesuits, they can't exist, the LEMS, without drinking babies. And they can't exist if you know that they're drinking babies, so they're getting you to look at other people for drinking babies when they're doing it themselves. They pinned the lore on the fairies for thousands of years, and now they've made the transition, and they're pinning the lore on the aliens. Folks, this is what's going on. That's what the whole UFO, ET, abduction scare scenario is. It's a cover for pedophilia and adrenochrome harvesting. You may think I'm crazy, but you know I'm right. Greg says they must reproduce with butt babies. In a way, they do. Butt buggering is a way to produce great adrenochrome. And that's the way that they continue to perpetuate their species. Have you seen Ellen lately? Look at Ellen before and after. It's hard for a bitch when she can't eat a baby. Look at Johnny Depp. Look at these people before and after. And then look at Tom Cruise, and it makes you go, I just don't know. I just don't know. Fairies often exchange their elderly for a human baby, and this changeling possesses wisdom beyond its years. Again, Bullard nails it, but according to the firsthand knowledge that I've got from the gentry, this is true but not true. No, I don't think Tom Cruise is a butt baby. That was my point, Greg. So the gentry, the fairies, would never, ever steal a child. They wouldn't. They don't. They just don't do it. They don't steal children. The only time that the fairies will ever adopt a child is if the child would die if it remained in this world. It would die if it remained in this world. Jared, you're full of shit, so bye. Just like this. Bye-bye. The only time the gentry would take a child is if the child would die in this realm that we live in. And there are times when babies have died or where babies would die if they were left in this world. In those occasions, the gentry will adopt a baby that is either about to die, would die, or has died. And sometimes they will allow one of their elderly to take the place. And fairies live so long that them coming in as elderly into a baby and living a full human life looks normal to us. But it's just the ending of their life as a gentry. So let me repeat this again. The only time fairies take children is when the child would die if left in this world, or has recently died, and of course the parents don't know that yet. Their world allows the child to live and prosper because they're in the center of the earth and it's different there. And the elderly fae will sometimes live out his or her life here in what to us looks like a normal lifespan. And I hate to burst some bubbles, but the gentry and humans cannot copulate and procreate. Now, they can copulate, but they can't procreate. And relax, Cynthia. I did not have sex with that fairy. I didn't. That's not bad after a long time and off the cuff. Dark fairies. Dark fairies of lore were often equated with the dead. Their appearance very much like that of the gaunt, drawn gray aliens of modern lore. Again, Bullard nails it. The church had the foresight to create a precursor for aliens amongst the Fae. They knew that people were going to be moving to the cities. They knew that they're going to have to shift this stuff at some point. So they created a Fae that looked a lot like a gray, Fae, gray. That's interesting. And it was a bad Fae that never, ever really existed. But it created the place for this guy to step in. And there's also a precursor for fear of the dead and demons and dependency on the church. You see how it all ties in? You see how it all works together? Uncle Quester, you are brilliant. Uncle Quester says, let me see if I can bring that one up here and show it on the screen, because that is high quality humor right there. That is high quality humor. Where is that, Uncle Quester? That's coming up. Oh, Uncle Quester said, when you said dark fairy, I thought you were about Obama and Big Mike. That is great comedy right there, ladies and gentlemen. But you see how it all works together? You see how it all commingles? This cabal is smart. Annie says it's a fable. Very, very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. And believe it or not, that was just kind of a segue on this whole thing. But, and it's interesting because it's right where I want to be. The church / cabal, fairies, and aliens. It's one big dark scheme by the regular players. The gentry have always lived alongside us peacefully. The church cabal has always sought to control us and has always abducted, always tortured, and always consumed our children. And the church cabal has long leveraged the gentry as scapegoats to cover their own heinous acts. Acts that are as heinous to the gentry as they are to us. And I'm throwing this out there for you, just as a little bug in your ear. The gentry is as fed up with the church. The gentry is as fed up with the cabal as we are, perhaps more so. Think about the ramifications of that going forward as we try and will succeed in taking control of our world back from these monsters. And if we all got on the C60 purple power, it would help us get ourselves back to the place. The C60 purple power, not only is it the great antioxidant, not only is it the great free radical killer, not only is it the fountain of youth, but it clears your thinking. It removes all that aluminum, all that stuff that's in the water and the chemtrails, and it allows you to get to your place where you can think clearly. Oh, now I see what they're doing to me. Now I see what we need to do. Now I see we need to get busy. And you don't even have to use a code anymore. Just go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the C60 logo. Your discount is built right into it. Folks, the gentry's fed up. We're fed up. It's our world. Let's take it back. What do you say? Let's take it back. Ah, damn. I'm done. That's it. There's no more to say. I can't believe it. A little disappointed because I was kind of on a roll there. Cynthia says anus acts. Yeah. And they are heinous. Heinous rhymes with anus. Maybe that's where she was going with that. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. This is amazing stuff. And we had Butte, which some people would say but check in early, which is kind of interesting. Israel and China, two tentacles of the deep state. Absolutely. Secret Energy family here. Court Spadette says, nice to see you. Folks, I don't know. I just don't know. It's so, yeah, but I see this and most people get really upset and really worried and really frightened. I just get excited because it's more information, and I know that we can win. I know that we can take these monsters down. Lisa's already donated a box of bullets to cure pedophilia. We can do this, curing pedophilia one bullet at a time. And we say that with tongue in cheek, sort of. Greg wants to know if you've got worms, and he means in a good way. Folks, we've got to learn, and I'm going somewhere else with this in the days to come. Lisa says, great show. Thank you. Elizabeth says, brilliant connection. Thank you. Uncle Quester's still laughing. Cynthia says, not yet. Don't know what that's all about. Leah Michelle's finishing up her first bottle of C60. She's definitely going to order some more. Good. Glad to hear it. Max says this is making him hungry. Max, you got issues. That's okay. Oh, we need to build our worm box. Yeah. And Cynthia's all about doing that. It just didn't happen. We did the bees, and she did a big garden and painted the house, roof on the house, all kind of stuff. So Craig says, what do you want to bet? Jelaine, I know her name. I said Ghislaine for a reason. Dies in jail with COVID. I don't know. It depends on how soon she runs out of information to give up. If she's smart, she is parsing it out. I'm very close to doing another Cousins Club. The subject matter is amazing. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but we'll certainly get to it tomorrow. Jelaine, whatever her name is. No, I called her Ghislaine on purpose because it means things and all that. But folks, we got to begin to look beyond what they tell us. That's what I mean when I say ask questions. And that's important. But the really important part is the second part, question answers. And as we begin to question answers, we begin to drill down and peel away. And as we drill down and peel away, we begin to unindoctrinate ourselves. And once we've unindoctrinated ourselves, then we realize how important it is that we prepare ourselves to be leaders, because there's not many of us. And we are the last generation of real humans. And if we ask the questions, if we question the answers, if we unindoctrinate ourselves, if we get busy leading instead of following, well, Jeff, I don't want to lead. Well, please either lead, follow, or get the hell out of our way, because we ain't got no time to play. No time to play. We've got to win. And we've got to win today. And I know people, I take crap. I've been taking it for 5 years, but I'm still here to tell you that the next 10 years, if we do what we need to do between now and November, and we get the current occupant of the White House back in the White House, you're going to see at least 4, probably 10 of the greatest years that we've ever seen in the history of the United States of America. What do you got to lose? Give it a shot. Go out and vote in November. And you can vote for the guy with dementia, or you can vote for the guy that's destroyed the mainstream media. It's up to you, ladies and gentlemen. We got Carol thinking. That's why I'm here, because I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to convince you what to think. I am here. I'm the mailman. I bring you the mail. Sometimes I bring you bills and you hate me. Sometimes I bring you checks and you love me, but I'm like young Pharaoh. I always bring my receipts. We always bring you proof and reasons for why we teach what we teach. I want to thank all the great moderators. We appreciate Tracy Dyer and all of the great moderators. I want to thank the lovely Cynthia, because without her, I could still do what I do, but I couldn't do it nearly as well as I do it. And Ian Jacqueline is in the house. A great brother. Nice to see you, Ian. We need to do a show again together. He's got a new book out about killing cancer and keeping your diet the way it needs to be. So, folks, we appreciate you all. We really do. We don't take anybody for granted. A week from Friday, we're going to be on Alkaline Diet. A week from Friday, we're going to be on with Sam Tripoli on the Tinfoil Hat podcast. And just to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, of what an honor that is, Sam just had Roger Stone on the Tinfoil Hat podcast. And then a week from Friday, nice to see you, Madame Katrina, or however you say that, Kat Rooney Cassidy, my old homegirl from back in Clearwater. And it's an honor. So a week from Friday, back with Sam Tripoli. We're trying to get back with Pharaoh. He's in moving, got a lot of things going on. And Saturday, we've got the great seminar coming up with Mike King. I tell you what, there's going to be great stuff coming up. We really are just getting started. I know we're at just short of 45,000 subscribers now, but we are just getting started. Trust me, the best is yet to come, both in your life, both in our nation's life, and collectively for this channel and for this movement. Because this is more than a channel. This is a movement. It's not a cult. A lot of people out there trying to start some cults. That's not for us. You got to be nice to people if you're trying to start a cult. It's a little hard for me sometimes. But we got a movement. And we are rocking on. We didn't have to lay out 16G for our roof. That's all I'm saying. Damn. You should have way more subs than what you have. I know, Uncle Quester. We'll get there. But, you know, we're just hanging in. We're just hanging in. Yeah, other people try to build a cult. We call. Because we only want the best of the best. And you folks in this chat room, you folks that ask questions, you folks that question answers, you folks that are here, you are the best of the best. They're not the elite. You are. And I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Glad to be your faithful servant, your le champion of biblical interpretation and spiritual revelation. Namaste with the occasional elbow nudge. We're here to do what we do, and we do what we do better than anybody else that does it. I salute you for being here, seeking after truth, and encourage you to get busy and unindoctrinate yourself.